Hi everyone. I'm just repeating actually something that I shot yesterday but didn't release because I had to add to it. This is pretty much a summary of why CNN. They are pretty much the big government, big media company that they think they're able to discern what's good for its viewers. And if you disagree with them, you're some sort of bigot. This is on the heels. By the way, I didn't watch it, but I've seen plenty of snippets and reactions to it of the CNN gun control quote unquote debate yesterday. I guess maybe I'll go and watch it later, even though I don't like tuning into anything that they do. So, maybe there will be more material on that later. From what I've heard, it was a pretty it was pretty much a joke. And in fact, there's there's a report from this person who was a school shooting survivor and one of the people who acted to counteract the school shooter, that his question was screened, and that's all over the media today. But CNN is continuing to funnel all of the coverage through mainly a number of, basically people who are its approved spokespeople for the tragedy. I'm not calling them anything other than approved spokespeople. I appreciate it that they did have to suffer through the tragedy. That's awful. But unfortunately, I believe that you don't limit the voices that speak on behalf of the victims to a number of approved people. And there's already been talk about some of the people. This guy Pollock, who lost his daughter, he was very outspoken in a very different way about what happened with the school shooting and what his beliefs are as far as it. But he doesn't get nearly the amount of media attention as the two other people, David Hogg and Emma Gonzalez, who I believe, they have an agenda that they've already had prior to the shooting. Maybe it strengthened their conviction. Maybe it caused them to become more outspoken about it. But I think that they were being pushed in front of the media. But that's not what this video is about. It's about some of the stuff that CNN is talking about, including lowering the voting age to 16, which I'll actually let me just open this. So their basic premise is that because of the protests due to the school shooting, this is according to Joshua Douglas, Parkland students show why 16-year-olds should be able to vote. And they got a law professor from the University of Kentucky, and suddenly, due to a tragedy that happened, they said that the school shooting validates the idea that the voting age should be lowered to 16. Now, the real motivation for this, as everybody knows, is the higher proportion of progressive and liberal voters among young people. But studies are showing that proportion is actually, it's still probably higher than the general population, but it's actually lower than was previously thought. And I included a link to another CNN article that states that that one referring to millennials. There's actually another study by Forbes, which I'll also include, that says, let me see here. It says Democrats should be losing sleep over Generation Z. I think that would be the generation that's coming of age now. Generation X was the generation that came before mine, and I guess we're millennials, and then there's Generation Z. So there are a lot of people who are kind of rejecting the same messages that they've been pushed in school: multiculturalism, this bullshit, gender fluidity, all of that, and those are ironically things. For example, there was another study by CNN and an op-ed that they published where it's wrong to impose gender roles on children. There's another one where they said that Rachel Dolezal should be able to. These are the choices that are okay with CNN. Rachel Dolezal should be allowed to identify as African American. So they believe, CNN believes, that it's perfectly fine for people to deny reality, deny biology, deny their the basic facts of life. But here are some choices that they believe are not okay, ones that are dangerous. So there's Britain, and I this is why I had to update it, because since yesterday I've come up with more of them. So there's Britain voting to leave the EU. That includes a June 2016 video where Christiane Amanpour basically almost tackles Dan Hannan, who is a British politician, pro-Brexit politician, and claims that his movement is racist and anti-immigrant and all of that, and says that the vote was a statement of intolerance. And you can go through it. It's probably 7 minutes long. I have that from Real Clear Politics. Also, parents choosing to take their school district dollars to a non-public school through vouchers is wrong. That's deemed that this article that I found was from Felicia Wong, and she basically claims that it's going to resegregate schools. But there's already been complaints by Democrats, especially, that schools have become resegregated through redistricting and people moving out to the suburbs, white people, and through white people taking their kids out of public schools and putting them into private and parochial schools. So she's claiming that if you give, listen to this, if you give vouchers, basically giving the taxpayer money of the parents of the black children and the other minority children, if you give them vouchers where they can afford to go to those private and parochial schools, just like the white students, that's resegregation, not the fact that they're already resegregated due to the fact that a lot of the lower income minority students can't afford to go to those schools, and they probably would rather go to them. And in fact, the charter school issue is that's one that's very near and dear to the hearts of many minority parents who don't want their kids to go to schools that are run basically by crappy school districts with top heavy administrative staff, and a teachers union that basically cares more about squeezing the benefits out of the school district and keeping tenured teachers who are way past their prime. They don't want that. They want to go to if charter schools are such a failure, why do people keep wanting to send their kids there? Okay, that's the real issue. That's the school choice, and CNN thinks that school choice is actually a wrong choice. They think it's a choice that they shouldn't have. Now that is an op-ed, but it's an op-ed that has very little grounding behind it. Austrians voting for a candidate that will limit immigration. This piece they actually call this was published and then updated during the vote over Austria's presidency. I think it was either their presidency or just their parliament, and now they have the youngest world leader in the world. And it was saying that Europe should fear from this new prime minister. This Sebastian something, I think his name is, and they were basically panicking. And I think that's what the headline said. Here, I'll put it in. Okay, this is the reaction to an election. Let me see here. I'm not going to show anything on screen, by the way, because then the video would just be too long, and I already have one article that I do want to share. Nope, not this one. Anyway, so they did say that it should panic the people of Europe. Okay, so then progressive Sanders voters. Here's another choice they don't like. They used Miley Cyrus in an interview, and they said she said it was crazy for progressive Sanders voters not to choose Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. So they're going to use somebody who's one of the most unbalanced celebrities out there. She walks around stage with strap-ons on and all sorts of does all sorts of disgusting routines on stage that it's they're clearly not meant for a younger audience, yet she still continues to do them. And they're using her as the voice of sanity. And then after the election, she had a tearful reaction, crying like some sort of retard, and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry. It's Donald Trump. I guess you can be my president or whatever." Shut up. Nobody even cares. You think anybody's going to care if you accept or not accept? You're an idiot. You're Billy Ray Cyrus. You're Achy Breaking Heart's daughter. That's the only reason that you even came to be famous. Okay, maybe you had some talent in the past, but clearly you're not using it anymore. And then the other two choices that they don't really think you should have are, if you own a bakery, not to bake a gay wedding cake. Everybody should probably know that story by now. And because there's a Supreme Court trial going to happen over that. And Americans deciding to read released documents on WikiLeaks. That's pretty famous. In 2016, Chris Cuomo declared on air that average Americans cannot read WikiLeaks, but listen to this: CNN can, because they're the media. Think about that for a second. They're saying that the media has stronger legal protections under the Constitution than do you or I. So what are you trying to say, Chris Cuomo? You're trying to say that you are a different class of American than are the rest of the people, your viewing audience. So you're trying to say that the media is they have a different set of civil rights than their viewers. I think that's exactly what CNN is saying. And indeed, that's the way, if you look at their breadth of work here, this is really the mindset of a company that they think, oh, we're on the global level. We move and shake with people who they determine the lives and employment and wages of people around the world. Jeff Bezos and and whoever. So we have a bigger say in what happens around the world than do the actual people who may view our programs. That's CNN's mindset. And what's even more disgusting is this. Where did I have that story? Yeah, I picked the wrong one. So this from Real Clear Politics. I'm gonna have to minimize the viewing screen for a second. No, I don't want email. So Real Clear Politics released this yesterday, and it's not like I'm picking something that is right-wing propaganda here. It's Real Clear Politics. They post something from every side, and it's talking about Wisconsin. They decided to go for school choice, and what happened? There were audits. There was Justice Department oversight. It said it was a prolonged mystery that struck Wisconsin education reformers as more akin to a Kafka novel than American Due Process. Who was behind cryptic demand letters sent under the aegis of the Obama Justice Department, intimating without specific evidence that Milwaukee's school choice program was illegally discriminating against disabled kids? Now, after a 6-year bureaucratic and legal tangle in which school voucher advocates said they were stonewalled by Washington, the mystery has been solved, and the answer, they say, is alarming. The federal operation was sparked and practically run behind the scenes by liberal opponents of the program. Documents released in December through litigation by school choice advocates showed that lawyers with the American Civil Liberties Union and Disability Rights Wisconsin had prodded federal prosecutors to go after the program, which enables low and moderate income Milwaukee parents to use taxpayer-funded vouchers to send their children to private schools. Nearly 30,000 students participate in the program. According to the documents, the liberal groups opposing vouchers coordinated media strategy with the feds and submitted questions that justice turned around and posed nearly, here's the key, nearly verbatim to Wisconsin education officials. So this is akin to what CNN did with the questions that Donna Brazile leaked to the Hillary Clinton campaign. Roland Martin and Donna Brazile, two CNN Roland Martin was kind of in partnership with CNN at that point, but he leaked it to Donna Brazil, who was a CNN employee, and she leaked it to Hillary Clinton's campaign. So whether CNN wants to acknowledge it or not, two people who were on that broadcast leaked questions and that were later asked verbatim to the candidates during that town hall or debate or whatever it was in 2016. I think it was in March 2016. In addition to suggesting that the program was violating the Americans with Disabilities Act by denying access to disabled kids, the groups promised to drum up additional complaints. Their efforts appear to be why Justice kept the inquiry open for 4 years, even though federal and state officials asserted from the start that even if the unproven charges were true, they were not legally empowered to remedy them in private schools. The conservative legal scholar Hans von Spakovsky called the disclosures evidence that the Obama administration engaged in unethical, improper, and disturbing conduct throughout its investigation into the Milwaukee school choice program. The Justice Department considered questions submitted by Real Clear Investigations, but declined to comment. Government watchdogs said there is nothing illegal about such an arrangement, noting it often makes sense for government to tap outside expertise on complex issues, but where the influence of corporate lobbyists on legislation has long raised red flags, less attention has been paid to influence of public interest groups on public policy. So this is the ACLU basically acting. If people talk about the NRA, what about the ACLU? How about, if we're going to be consistent and talk about money influencing politics, why not go both ways? Okay, I'm not an NRA member, and I'm not an ACLU member, and I'm not an NAA. I don't believe in any of this alphabet soup. In fact, I oppose the NRA's compromise over this gun control nonsense. But that's neither here nor there. But what we're seeing here, basically, one of these alphabet soup organizations initiating a federal investigation over nothing, over not even over parent complaints. Paul S. Ryan, Vice President for Policy and Litigation at the group Common Cause, said he has informally advised government agencies and even served as co-counsel with them on some campaign finance cases. But it is inappropriate for justice to be led by an outside group, he said, stressing that he does not know what specifically transpired in Wisconsin. The earliest documents seen by Real Clear Investigations, which is the name of this department of Real Clear Politics, date from late June and July 2011, when a representative from the nonprofit Disability Rights Wisconsin sent emails to the ACLU and Justice Department in what appears to be an ongoing discussion regarding the Disabilities Act and the voucher program. The issue became public that August when Justice sent a vague letter to Wisconsin's Department of Public Instruction Superintendent Tony Evers. It said Justice had received a complaint alleging that students with disabilities in the Milwaukee School District are denied access to AIDS services, AIDS being, help, not the disease. Access to, probably talking about, teacher aides, services and benefits associated with participation in the voucher program in violation of the Title II's anti-discrimination mandate. The letter included no specific examples. It did include a series of questions that were virtually copied and pasted from a June 29th email sent to federal prosecutors by Jeffrey Spitzer Resnick, then the managing attorney for this disability group. This would set a pattern. Another set of questions from the nonprofits were posed by Justice in a February 2012 letter to Milwaukee Public Schools Superintendent Gregory E. Thornton. While Justice hastened to note MPS is not the subject of our investigation, the letter nevertheless demanded that the public schools compile all sorts of information and statistics on disabled students' attendance at various schools. In May 2012, Spitzer Resnick informed the DOJ team that his group had drummed up some new potential plaintiffs, according to emails. While Spitzer Resnick acknowledged working closely with the Justice Department, he rejected the idea that he was running the show. It is true we worked with the ACLU finding families with children with disabilities who had been denied admission to choice schools, but we constantly and consistently urged Justice to take a more aggressive stance. School choice advocates and administrators of private schools found the Justice Department's stance, especially its broad suggestion of wrongdoing without any specific complaints, frightening and mystifying. Mike Bartels, a top administrator at Mesmer Preparatory Catholic School in Milwaukee, recalls being contacted by Department of Public Instruction officials regarding the issue. He said he was confused because he had never received a complaint. And I thought, what's to report? Bartels said, referring to state authorities he'd now have to keep in the loop. All Bartels and school choice advocates knew for certain was that justice was mulling action. Given the power federal prosecutors wield in the Obama administration's close bonds with teachers' unions, which see school choice as an existential threat, voucher supporters were afraid of what was coming next. It was very scary. No one wants to see their name next to a versus the United States of America. So they're talking about getting prosecuted by the federal government, said C.J. Zaffer, the executive vice president and general counsel at the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, a libertarian outfit active in school choice issues. So, you know, it goes on for a while, but essentially what we're talking about is this, okay? The voters of Wisconsin decided, you know, several years ago, I think it was 2012, so you know, it was actually this year they fast tracked the catch-all school choice bill last year, and this is the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and you know, there's, let me see here. So there has been school choice throughout Wisconsin for the past 4 or 5 years, and I think that was you know, I personally am for school choice, but you know, the idea that because of the complaints of a advocacy group and their direction, the Justice Department would decide to open an investigation and basically use them as their conduit to gather evidence and in order to also direct the line of questioning is ridiculous. That would be the same as if, you know, for example, if they were to use if they were to use the NAACP in order to prosecute somebody like, you know, let's say, who would be one of their enemies? Jeff Sessions. Okay, now they hate Jeff Sessions after 30 years when they loved Jeff Sessions. Okay, they would use them as their point people in order to prosecute somebody, even though, you know, it's the Department of Justice is supposed to treat all Americans equally under the laws of and of the Constitution and the federal government. So this, in my mind, this embodies the whole issue of CNN, you know, the media and their attention to personal liberties and freedoms. Okay, gun rights not respected. The ability of people to read WikiLeaks, which has already been released. WikiLeaks is a journalistic organization. They release classified information, just like the rest of the media. Apparently, they like to release classified information, but out of context. WikiLeaks releases full documents. So yeah, we're talking about a tremendous double standard between a corporate media that doesn't care about the rights of average Americans, whether it's gun rights, whether it's freedom of speech, whether it's freedom of assembly. You know, they're talking all the time about the alt-right. We're afraid of the alt-right. Well, I have news for you. Even if we don't disagree with the alt-right, under the Constitution, under several court cases, including Skokie versus I don't know, National Socialist movement or whatever it was, they've ruled over and over again that yes, even groups that we disagree with have the freedom of assembly. You know, you do have the right to refuse business to somebody for reasons that are personal. For example, the gay wedding cake. You have the right not to vote for somebody just because your candidate did not get the nomination. That's the Sanders case. You have the vote, and this is Britain. So CNN is trying to preach, you know, they're suddenly they became in 2016, you know, advocates for the well-being of the British, because suddenly the British can't choose for themselves whether to be part of the European Union. It's absurd, and that's their attitude here. And I'm not surprised that they haven't covered this Wisconsin issue, which is just a bit as big of an issue. You know, the voters over there, they did choose to take school choice up as their official policy. The voters in Florida have not chosen. They have not chosen to adopt stricter gun control laws. So now they're talking about lowering the voting age because they believe that young people will swing the vote in that way. Well, that brings you out of being a reporting organization, a news organization, CNN, and to being an opinion and an advocacy organization. And that's why everybody knows that CNN is fake news, and they're a detriment to both progressives and conservatives and probably everybody in between.